You may never truly die. At the instant of your demise, your consciousness might have already slipped into another version of yourself, still alive. Or perhaps, you've already experienced countless deaths without ever realizing it. This isn't science fiction, it's quantum immortality theory, seriously debated by physicists worldwide. But here's the terrifying twist. This seemingly alluring immortality might be a nightmare more frightening than death itself. If you truly could never experience death, would that be a blessing or a curse? Introduction. This video tackles an incredibly vast subject. Over the next 20+ minutes, I'll use accessible language, rigorous logic, and scientific principles to help you fully grasp quantum immortality. After watching, you may never view life and death the same way again. But before we dive in, I want you to think about something personal. Can you remember a moment in your life when you narrowly escaped danger? A car accident you barely avoided, a fall that could have been fatal, or an illness you miraculously recovered from? Hold that memory, because by the end of this video, you might see that moment in an entirely different light. To understand this mind-bending theory, we must first unravel one of quantum mechanics' most bizarre phenomena: quantum superposition. Part 1, the quantum foundation. In our everyday world, objects appear fixed in single states. You're either here or there, alive or dead. But in the quantum world, everything changes. Particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, like photons traveling down two different paths at once, or electrons appearing in different places at the same time. To grasp how bizarre this is, imagine if you could be in your bedroom and your kitchen at the exact same moment, not as separate copies, but as one person existing in both places simultaneously. This isn't metaphorical, it's literally what happens to subatomic particles every single second. But here's what's truly mind-bending. The moment you observe these particles, they suddenly become well-behaved. They instantly choose one state from among countless possibilities, as if reality itself were suddenly frozen before your eyes. The great physicist Niels Bohr once said, "Anyone who is not shocked by quantum theory has not understood it." And indeed, even Einstein struggled with these concepts, famously declaring that God does not play dice with the universe. But what if Einstein was wrong? What if the universe does play dice and we're all players in a cosmic game we don't even realize we're playing? So think about this for a moment. If every particle composing our bodies can behave this way, could it be that we humans also exist simultaneously across multiple different possibilities? In other words, might certain versions of you have already died, yet you remain utterly unaware of those alternate realities, because your consciousness forever follows only the version that survived? Don't dismiss this too quickly. Let's examine one of history's most famous thought experiments. In 1935, physicist Erwin Schrödinger proposed a spine-chilling scenario to highlight the absurdity of quantum mechanics when applied to everyday objects. Picture this carefully. A cat locked inside a sealed box with a diabolical quantum mechanism. Inside this box is a small amount of radioactive material, a Geiger counter, a hammer, a flask of poison, and a quantum trigger that has exactly a 50% chance of activating within 1 hour. Here's how it works. If just one radioactive atom decays during that hour, the Geiger counter detects it, signals the hammer breaks the flask, poison gas is released, and the cat dies. If no atom decays, the cat remains perfectly alive. Sounds straightforward, right? But here's Schrödinger's brilliant and disturbing insight. Before you open the box and observe the outcome, according to quantum mechanics, the radioactive atom exists in a superposition of both decayed and not decayed states. This means the cat isn't simply alive or dead waiting to be discovered. According to quantum theory, it exists in a bizarre superposition, both alive and dead simultaneously, neither and both, until the moment you open the box. Only when you lift the lid and observe does reality make its choice. The cat's state instantly becomes determined through what physicists call wave function collapse. But Schrödinger wasn't trying to prove that cats could exist in multiple states. He was pointing out what he saw as the ridiculous implications of quantum theory when applied to large objects. Yet decades later, scientists have confirmed that quantum superposition is absolutely real at the microscopic level, and the boundary between quantum and classical worlds remains mysteriously undefined. So the question becomes, where exactly does the quantum world end and our classical reality begin? And what if that boundary is far less clear than we think? Part 2, the many worlds interpretation. But what if Schrödinger had it backwards? What if reality doesn't collapse into just one state at all? What if both outcomes actually occur, existing separately in different parallel universes? And what if instead of a cat in that box, it was you? This is where quantum immortality theory emerges from one of the most radical interpretations of quantum mechanics. According to this hypothesis, at the very moment of your impending death, your consciousness persists only in the universe where you survived. This mind-bending concept stems from the many worlds interpretation, first proposed in 1957 by a young and brilliant physicist named Hugh Everett III. Everett was only 27 when he submitted his doctoral thesis that would revolutionize our understanding of reality itself. His idea was remarkably bold and academically dangerous. Every quantum event, every single one, triggers an immediate cosmic split into multiple parallel versions of reality, each completely real and fully realized. Imagine the universe as an infinitely vast tree with reality constantly branching. Every quantum event, and physicists estimate there are more than 10 to the power of 43 happening every second, creates new branches. Each branch represents a complete, fully real universe with its own version of history, its own version of you. Consider this mind-expanding analogy. Imagine you're walking down a street and you reach a crossroads. You have to choose, turn left toward the coffee shop or turn right toward the bookstore. In our normal understanding, you make one choice and reality continues in that direction. But according to Everett's many worlds theory, reality doesn't make a choice at all. Instead, it splits. One universe where you turn left, another where you turn right. Both versions of you continue existing, both convinced they made the only choice. But here's where it gets truly staggering and almost incomprehensible. This splitting doesn't occur only at your conscious decisions. Every quantum event throughout the entire cosmos, down to individual particles, causes reality to continuously branch into countless parallel universes. Every photon hitting your retina creates new branches. Every neuron firing in your brain spawns alternate realities. Every radioactive decay anywhere in the universe splits existence itself. Can you even begin to imagine what this means? According to the many worlds interpretation at this very moment, there are countless versions of you living entirely different lives across an infinite array of parallel universes. There's a universe where you became a world-famous scientist, another where you never learned to speak, one where gravity works differently, countless others where you died at various points throughout your life, and even universes where you were never born at all. Some versions achieve incredible success, others face terrible tragedy, and many have already experienced death multiple times. Yet your consciousness, this specific stream of awareness reading these words right now, can only perceive this single thread of reality. But here's the crucial insight that leads directly to quantum immortality. If every possible outcome occurs in some universe, then there must always be universes where you survive, no matter how slim the odds, no matter how impossible it seems. From your perspective, you would always find yourself in the surviving universe, because by definition, you couldn't find yourself anywhere else. You can only experience realities where you exist to have experiences. Part 3, Quantum Decoherence, Why We Don't Notice. So here's the obvious and critical question. If we truly shuttle between different realities every moment, why are we completely unaware of it? Why don't you remember the moment you died in another reality? The answer lies in one of physics' most important phenomena, quantum decoherence, the process that prevents us from experiencing multiple realities simultaneously. Think of decoherence as nature's ultimate firewall, keeping different realities separate and preventing our macro world from experiencing the bizarre quantum effects that govern the microscopic realm. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning to find that your familiar coffee shop has mysteriously transformed overnight into a bookstore. The barista you've chatted with for months is now a librarian who insists she's worked there for years. The menu board displays book recommendations instead of daily specials. This surreal scenario never happens in our experience because quantum decoherence prevents such bizarre reality shifts in our macro world, and it does so through 3 fundamental mechanisms. First, every particle in our universe constantly interacts with its environment, colliding with air molecules, absorbing photons of light, exchanging thermal energy, responding to electromagnetic fields. These countless interactions instantly destroy any superposition states, forcing particles to collapse into definite classical behavior. Second, The more complex and massive a system becomes, the faster decoherence occurs. A single electron might maintain superposition for microseconds. But something as complex as the human brain, with its 86 billion neurons, trillions of synaptic connections, and countless molecular interactions, loses quantum coherence almost instantaneously. Third, the universe appears fundamentally designed to isolate different versions of reality from each other. Once universes split at the quantum level, each becomes completely self-contained, incapable of communicating with or influencing others. It's as if reality has built-in firewalls preventing different timelines from interfering with each other's development. In practical terms, even if your consciousness leapt to another universe every time you faced death, you would be completely and utterly unaware of the transition. To you, everything would remain perfectly normal and continuous. The shift would be seamless, invisible, like waking up from a dream you can't remember, or like blinking and missing a single frame in the movie of your life. Think back to your own experiences for a moment and really consider this. Has there ever been a time when you narrowly avoided serious injury or even death? Maybe you were driving and suddenly felt compelled to take a different route for no logical reason, only to later discover there was a fatal accident on your original path that happened exactly when you would have been there. Or perhaps you've experienced what people call beginner's walk, surviving dangerous situations where more experienced people might have failed, as if reality itself were protecting you. Some researchers believe these lucky escapes from death, these inexplicable moments of perfect timing, are actually proof that quantum immortality operates in our lives. Perhaps in parallel universes. You really did die in that car accident, really did fall from that dangerous height, really did succumb to that illness. But your consciousness, this specific stream of awareness that you identify as you, quietly and invisibly switched over to this universe where you survived. You'll never know about those other tragic possibilities because quantum decoherence has already erased all traces of the crossing between realities, leaving your memory perfectly intact and continuous. Part 4, the observer effect in consciousness. This brings us to one of the most profound questions in all of science. What role does consciousness play in determining reality? Swedish-American physicist Max Tegmark proposed the ultimate test for quantum immortality through what he called the quantum suicide experiment. But let me be absolutely clear before we continue. This is purely a thought experiment, not something anyone should ever attempt in reality. Imagine a machine designed with quantum randomness at its very core, a device that has exactly a 50% chance of killing its operator each time it activates, with the outcome determined purely by quantum events like radioactive decay that cannot be predicted or controlled. From an outside observer's perspective, if someone used this machine repeatedly, the laws of probability guarantee they would eventually die. Mathematical certainty dictates that after enough attempts, the quantum coin flip would land on death. But according to quantum immortality theory, something seemingly impossible would occur from the operator's perspective. Their consciousness would only continue existing in universes where they survived each attempt. From their viewpoint, they would become watching the machine mysteriously malfunction every single time, defying all statistical probability in ways that would seem miraculous. To everyone else observing from outside, they would be dead after a few attempts. But to them, they would be the luckiest person who ever lived, surviving impossible odds again and again in a way that seems to violate the very laws of chance. This connects directly to quantum physics' observer effect, one of the most experimentally verified and philosophically troubling phenomena in all of science. At the quantum scale, particles genuinely exist in superposition, multiple states simultaneously, until the moment they're observed. Then they instantly collapse into single, definite states. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrates this conclusively. When unobserved, individual particles behave like waves, somehow passing through both slits at once and creating interference patterns that should be impossible for discrete objects. But the instant someone observes which slit the particle passes through, it instantly reverts to classical behavior, choosing just one path like any normal object should. The act of conscious observation literally changes the behavior of reality at its most fundamental level. So here's a question that strikes at the very heart of consciousness and reality. What if human consciousness isn't just a passive observer of the universe, but an active participant in determining which version of reality we experience? Could your consciousness actively select which quantum outcomes become your reality, especially during life or death moments when survival hangs in the balance? Consider those inexplicable survival stories that defy explanation. People who should have died in plane crashes, but changed their flights at the last minute because of an unexplainable feeling of dread. Individuals who walked away from car accidents that should have been instantly fatal. Patients who recovered from terminal illnesses that had never been survived before. Perhaps some of these miraculous survivals occur because consciousness instinctively locks onto the branch of reality where survival is possible. In other words, some people survive near impossible situations not through luck or divine intervention, but because they actually died in countless other universes while their consciousness selected the one reality where they continue to exist. If this is true, it would completely revolutionize our understanding of consciousness, free will, and the very nature of existence itself. Part 5. The anthropic principle and fine-tuning. The implications become even more staggering when we consider the anthropic principle and the fine-tuning of our universe for conscious life. Our cosmos appears to be precisely calibrated for the existence of complexity, chemistry, and ultimately consciousness, and this might be far more than mere coincidence. Consider the fundamental constants that govern all physical reality. The gravitational constant, the electromagnetic force, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, the mass of protons and electrons, the speed of light, Planck's constant, and dozens of other values that determine how matter and energy behave. If any of these constants were even slightly different, we're talking about changes smaller than 1 part in billions. The universe would be utterly hostile to life as we understand it. If gravity were just slightly stronger, stars would burn out in millions of years instead of billions, giving evolution no time to produce complex life. If it were slightly weaker, matter would never clump together to form galaxies, stars, or planets at all. If the strong nuclear force were marginally weaker, atomic nuclei would fly apart and complex chemistry would be impossible. If it were marginally stronger, hydrogen would fuse so readily that the universe would be nothing but heavy elements and black holes. Even more precisely, if the universe's expansion rate differed by just 1 part in 10 to the 55th power, that's a decimal point followed by 54 zeros and then a 1, the cosmos would either collapse immediately after the Big Bang or expand so rapidly that galaxies could never condense from the initial matter. Have you ever really contemplated this cosmic coincidence? Why do you happen to find yourself existing in this one universe among infinite possibilities perfectly calibrated for conscious life at this particular moment in cosmic history? Why aren't you in a universe where the laws of physics make complexity impossible? Or perhaps failing to exist at all in a reality where consciousness never emerged? Traditional science explains this through the weak anthropic principle. Of course, we observe a life-friendly universe because we couldn't observe any other kind. We exist to notice the fine-tuning precisely because the fine-tuning allows us to exist. But quantum immortality suggests something far more profound and potentially terrifying. Could conscious survival be a fundamental feature of reality itself? If every possible quantum outcome occurs somewhere in the infinite multiverse, and if consciousness only persists in universes where observers can survive, then perhaps the cosmos is inherently designed not just for the emergence of life, but for the preservation of individual conscious experience. This wouldn't just explain fine-tuning, it would suggest that conscious beings like us are somehow cosmically protected, that the universe has a built-in bias toward observer survival that operates across all possible realities. But here's the possibilities that haunts philosophers and physicists alike. If quantum immortality prevents true death and ensures consciousness always survives in some reality, could you become trapped in eternal existence with no possibility of escape? Imagine this nightmarish scenario. You're 99 years old, your body failing, everyone you've ever loved long dead and buried. In any normal universe, you would peacefully pass away and find rest. But if quantum immortality operates as theorized, your consciousness would be forced to keep jumping to increasingly improbable universes where you continue to survive, perhaps becoming the oldest human who ever lived, then the only person remaining alive on a dying Earth, trapped in a deteriorating body that can never find the release of death. Would immortality then become the ultimate curse rather than the ultimate blessing? An eternity of existence you never chose and can never escape? Part 6, Identity, Consciousness, and the Ship of Theseus. This brings us to perhaps the most philosophically disturbing question raised by quantum immortality. If you're constantly jumping between slightly different universes, are you still the same person? Each time your consciousness supposedly jumps to a surviving reality, what exactly is making that journey? This echoes an ancient philosophical puzzle that has troubled thinkers for over 2,000 years, known as the Ship of Theseus paradox. Imagine a wooden ship that sails the seas for decades. Over time, its planks rot and are replaced one by one. Its sails wear out and are renewed. Its ropes fray and are substituted. Eventually, after many years at sea, not a single piece of the original ship remains. Every plank, sail, rope, and nail has been replaced with new materials. Is it still the same ship? Now apply this ancient riddle to your own existence. Your cells die and are replaced constantly. The atoms in your body are exchanged with your environment continuously. Your memories fade, change, and are reconstructed imperfectly each time you recall them. Your personality evolves, your beliefs shift, your very sense of self transforms over time. If quantum immortality is real, your consciousness may have silently shifted between countless universes throughout your life, each reality slightly different from the last, each version of you nearly identical but not perfectly so. Are you still the original you who was born decades ago? Or merely the latest iteration in an infinite chain of consciousness transfers, a copy of a copy of a copy, each convinced of continuity that may not actually exist? Consider this deeply unsettling thought experiment. If countless parallel versions of you exist right now across the infinite multiverse, which one represents the real, authentic you? There's a version of you who became a renowned artist, another who never learned to read, one who married someone completely different, another who chose a different career, countless versions who died at various ages, and others who made completely opposite life choices at every major decision point. If you could somehow meet your parallel universe counterpart, identical in appearance, sharing most of your memories, having lived a nearly identical life with only small differences, would you consider them your true self, or would they be a stranger who merely happens to share your past? Even more philosophically troubling, if your counterpart in a parallel universe dies while you continue surviving in this reality, are the deceased and living versions still the same person? Or does death create an unbridgeable separation in identity? Does consciousness maintain continuity across realities? Or does each universe jump create a new person entirely? Perhaps our entire concept of individual identity is nothing more than a comforting illusion created by our limited perception of reality. Maybe there is no single, continuous, authentic you, only an infinite stream of consciousness flowing through countless realities like a river, with each moment convinced it has always existed, unaware of the countless other streams running parallel to it through space and time. Part 7, the Mandela Effect and Memory Glitches. Some researchers propose that quantum immortality might explain one of the most puzzling phenomena of human memory, the Mandela Effect, where large groups of people share identical false memories of events that apparently never happened. This strange phenomenon gets its name from a specific and widespread example. Millions of people around the world vividly remember South African leader Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. They recall watching his funeral on television, seeing his widow in tears, hearing about riots following his death. Yet historical records clearly show that Mandela lived until 2013, becoming South Africa's president and winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Similarly, countless people remember the famous Star Wars line as Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father," when he actually says, "No, I'm your father." Other examples include people remembering the Monopoly board game character having a monocle. He never did. The children's book series being spelled Berenstain Bears instead of the actual Berenstain Bears. The Queen's song lyrics as "We are the champions of the world" instead of simply "We are the champions." Why do so many people worldwide share these exact same erroneous memories? Could billions of human brains have simultaneously malfunctioned in precisely the same way? Or might there be a far more extraordinary explanation lurking behind this mysterious phenomenon? What if these memories aren't false at all? What if there are perfectly accurate recollections from parallel universes that we somehow crossed over from during our quantum journeys between realities? According to quantum immortality theory, every time you face death, your consciousness might slip into a universe so similar to your original that you notice no difference, except for tiny details that most people wouldn't consciously register. Perhaps these small discrepancies in memory represent the only traces left behind as evidence of our constant migration between parallel realities, like quantum fingerprints from the universes we've left behind. Consider déjà vu as well, that eerie sensation of having lived through the exact same moment before, which virtually everyone has experienced. Wow. Have you ever entered an unfamiliar place yet felt inexplicably certain you'd been there before? Or found yourself anticipating someone's exact words before they spoke, as if you'd lived through that precise conversation already? This is déjà vu, literally meaning already seen in French. Traditional science explains it as memory processing errors, delayed neural signals, or false pattern recognition in the brain. But what if déjà vu isn't a neurological glitch at all, but genuine memories from parallel universes where identical events occurred? Perhaps these moments represent brief overlaps between realities, fleeting instances where the quantum barriers between universes become temporarily thin and permeable. Some people report even more intense experiences during déjà vu episodes, not just vague familiarity, but the precise ability to predict exactly what will happen next in real time. They know what a stranger will say before the words leave their mouth, which direction someone will walk before they move, what song will play next on the radio before it starts. If the many worlds theory is correct, this phenomenon makes perfect sense through quantum mechanics. You're not developing psychic abilities or predicting an uncertain future. You're simply remembering a parallel present that you've already experienced in another reality. Conclusion: quantum immortality presents us with the ultimate paradox about consciousness, death, and the nature of existence itself. If consciousness automatically jumps to surviving universes each time death approaches, then the versions of you that die vanish forever from your awareness, leaving no memory, no trace, no evidence of the countless transitions between realities. Death would become not an ending in any traditional sense, but merely another invisible quantum leap, a transfer of consciousness that feels like nothing more than another ordinary moment in an unbroken stream of experience. Perhaps personal identity isn't the fixed, continuous thing we imagine it to be. Perhaps death is never truly final, merely a transition between infinite versions of yourself, each convinced they've maintained unbroken continuity throughout their entire existence, unaware of the countless parallel selves who weren't so fortunate. But this elegant solution to the mystery of consciousness and death brings with it the most unsettling possibility imaginable. If you're truly destined to keep awakening and surviving universes no matter what happens, you might be trapped in an existence that can never find resolution, forced to experience reality until the very end of time itself. Some philosophers argue this makes every moment infinitely precious, each breath a miraculous gift in an unbreakable chain of survival against impossible odds. Others contend it renders existence ultimately meaningless. If you can never truly die, if every choice leads to survival somewhere, then what real weight do your decisions carry? What genuine stakes exist in a game you can never actually lose? The next time you experience a close call, a narrow escape, a moment when disaster brushed past you by mere inches or seconds, ask yourself this haunting question. Did you simply get lucky in this reality? Or did you quietly slip through a quantum gateway into a parallel universe where you survived? Was that near miss just coincidence or compelling evidence that somewhere in the vast multiverse, another version of you wasn't quite so fortunate? In the strange realm of quantum mechanics, where observation changes reality and particles exist in multiple states simultaneously, you may never know the difference between luck and quantum resurrection. And perhaps that eternal uncertainty is the most terrifying aspect of immortality itself.